The spaceship hummed steadily in the quiet void of space. Captain Ethan Blake stood near the control panel, staring at the display in front of him. It was a routine check. Everything seemed normal. The readings showed nothing unusual. There was a problem. The fuel levels were slightly off. It's not by much, but it was enough to raise concern. The ship had been drifting off course for the past few hours, and Blake couldn't figure out why. He ran his fingers through his hair in frustration, tapping the screen again. "What the hell is going on?" he muttered under his breath. Checked the readings one more time. The numbers were the same, showing nothing wrong, yet he knew something wasn't right. The fuel tank wasn't full enough to explain the ship's behavior. It wasn't a catastrophic issue, but it was strange. Maybe a minor leak? But there had been no alarms, no flashing warnings, nothing. Blake couldn't shake the feeling that something was hidden, something he was missing. All right, let's check the fuel system manually, he decided. Blake knew that the systems on board the ship were highly advanced, but sometimes even the best technology could fail. If there was a small leak, it might not trigger an alarm. It was time to investigate. He grabbed his toolkit and made his way toward the lower maintenance level, where the fuel systems were located. The corridors were dimly lit, a faint blue glow from the emergency lights illuminating his path. The silence on board was almost eerie. Ethan's boots clicked against the metal floor as he walked, the sound echoing down the empty hallways. As he passed the crew quarters and cargo hold, Blake couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The atmosphere in the ship felt heavy, as though it were holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. He pushed the thought aside. There was no reason to panic. It was just a leak. Reaching the maintenance area, Blake took a deep breath before opening the door. The room was filled with pipes, wires, and control panels. It was dark, save for a few flickering lights above. Blake moved swiftly, scanning the gauges and checking the fuel system lines. Nothing. No leaks. No broken valves. Nothing. He crouched down to inspect the fuel lines more closely, his flashlight illuminating the darkened corners of the room. As he scanned the pipes, his mind raced. He couldn't find anything out of place. He checked the pressure system, the seals, and the tanks. Everything seemed normal. Just as he was about to call it quits and head back to the bridge, a strange sound caught his attention. It was faint, almost imperceptible, a scratching sound. Ethan's body went still as the noise echoed through the quiet room. It was coming from behind the fuel tank. Without thinking, he grabbed a wrench from his belt and slowly approached the source of the sound. He reached the corner of the tank and peered around it, his breath caught in his throat. There, sitting on the floor, was a figure. A girl. She was hunched over, her back to him. Her hands moved in a swift, almost rhythmic motion as she fumbled with something in front of her. Ethan blinked, unsure if his eyes were deceiving him. A girl in the fuel system room? It didn't make sense. His first instinct was to call security, but then he noticed what she was doing. She was holding a small container and drinking from it. It wasn't water. The liquid inside the container shimmered a faint green. It looked strange. And as his eyes focused more, it became clearer. It was fuel. The same fuel that had been leaking. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. She was drinking it. She was drinking the ship's fuel. Ethan's heart raced and he stepped forward, his breath coming faster now. Wanted to shout, to demand answers, but something held him back. His gaze shifted from the girl to the container in her hand. It was almost as though she was unaware of his presence, but then she turned. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, the world seemed to freeze. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. There was something about her eyes, something alien. Her features were soft and almost human, but there was something undeniably different. Her skin had a faint glow to it, like the light itself was drawn to her. She didn't seem frightened. In fact, she looked almost curious, as if she had been expecting him. You're drinking the fuel? Blake managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. The girl didn't reply right away. She simply looked at him, her gaze unblinking. Ethan felt a sense of unease growing within him, the silence between them becoming unbearable. Why was she here? How did she get onto the ship? Most importantly, why was she drinking the fuel? Why? Ethan asked again, his voice shaking this time. Why are you doing this? The girl tilted her head slightly, as if trying to understand the question. Her lips parted slightly, and for a brief moment, Ethan thought she might speak. But instead, she simply stood up and placed the container down beside her, as if the matter was of no importance. A loud beep suddenly rang out, breaking the tension. Ethan's hand went instinctively to his comms device. It was the fuel system alert. The leak had been detected. His eyes shot back to the girl. Had she somehow triggered the alert? Before he could ask more, she turned and started walking toward the door, her movements graceful, almost fluid. Ethan stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do next. Was she part of the ship's malfunction? Or was there something more to her presence? And just as quickly as she had appeared, she disappeared into the shadows of the ship. Blake stood there, staring at the empty room, his mind racing with more questions than answers. Captain Ethan Blake stood frozen, staring at the spot where the girl had been just moments ago. The eerie silence of the room seemed to stretch, as if time itself had slowed down. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what he had just witnessed. He had spent years in space, seen countless strange things, but this was different. This wasn't a technical malfunction or a simple mechanical failure. This was something far more mysterious. He glanced back at the fuel container that the girl had placed on the floor. The glowing green liquid still shimmered faintly in the dim light. He wanted to step closer, to examine it, but his feet felt glued to the ground. The more he thought about it, the stranger it seemed. Why had she chosen to drink the fuel? Was she consuming it as some sort of nourishment? And why wasn't she afraid of being caught? Blake turned to the doorway. The girl was gone, but the unease lingered in the air like a heavy fog. He moved quickly to the door, his mind alert to every sound, every movement. But there was nothing. The hallways outside were empty, and there was no sign of her. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. His pulse quickened. He had to find answers. He couldn't just let this go. A stowaway? A saboteur? Or something far more dangerous? Possibilities seemed endless, and none of them sat well with him. He tapped his comms device, his voice low. Security, this is Captain Blake. I need a full sweep of the ship. We have a ... situation. He hesitated, trying to find the right words. A possible intruder, an alien. The silence on the other end of the comms was palpable. Finally, a voice crackled through. Acknowledged, Captain. We'll initiate a full scan. Stand by. Blake disconnected and took a deep breath. He needed more information. He couldn't afford to act on impulse, no matter how alarming the situation was. He had to stay calm. He reached for his tablet, flipping through the ship's database for any mention of alien life or similar incidents. His fingers moved quickly, but he came up with nothing. No records, no reports. It was as though the ship's systems had no knowledge of her presence. With no answers to be found in the ship's logs, Ethan decided to do what he did best: investigate. He moved through the ship's corridors, heading for the areas where the fuel systems were located, retracing his steps. The lights above flickered occasionally, casting long, twisting shadows on the walls. It was the kind of place where secrets could hide in plain sight. As he reached the maintenance deck again, Blake noticed something new. A strange, faint odor hung in the air, like burnt metal mixed with something sweet. The scent made his skin crawl. He followed it, tracing it to a small vent at the far end of the room. The vent was slightly ajar, just wide enough for someone or something to slip through. His heart skipped a beat. Could the girl have gone through there? Blake crouched down, shining his flashlight into the small opening. Air was nothing unusual inside, just dust and old grease. But the strange odor lingered, and it gnawed at his senses. Blake stood up, his mind working furiously. If she was still on the ship, she had to be nearby. He couldn't let her slip away again. With the alien girl still a mystery, he knew he couldn't afford to waste time. He had to act fast, but he also had to be careful. He checked the security monitors, searching for any sign of her. Nothing, no trace. As if she had disappeared altogether. It was as if she had never existed. Blake clenched his jaw. He wasn't going to let this go. He was going to find her, and when he did, he was going to get answers. As he prepared to leave the maintenance area, sudden realization hit him like a jolt of electricity. If the girl had been drinking the fuel, and if she was not a stowaway, then what was she? Was she from another ship? Or was she something else entirely? His mind raced with questions, but no answers came. Then, a voice cut through the silence. A whisper barely audible at first. "You shouldn't have followed me." Ethan spun around, his heart pounding in his chest. There, standing in the doorway, was the girl. She had returned. Her eyes glowing faintly in the darkness, fixed on him, with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. "I'm not a threat," she said, her voice soft but unmistakable. "But you're in danger, all of you." Blake's instincts kicked in, but he held his ground. "What do you want? Why are you here?" The girl took a step forward, her presence somehow more unsettling now. "I didn't choose to be here, but I had no choice." She paused, her gaze shifting to the walls around them, as though the ship itself was listening. "They're coming, and when they do, you won't be ready." Blake's mind raced, but he couldn't find the words. Who was she? What danger was she talking about, and who exactly was coming? Before he could ask any more questions, the girl turned abruptly and walked away, disappearing into the shadows. Blake stood there for a moment, his mind spinning with confusion and fear. This was far bigger than a fuel leak. This was something he wasn't prepared for. He took one final look at the spot where she had vanished and made up his mind. Whatever was going on, whatever secret this girl was hiding, he would uncover it. He had no choice now. Captain Ethan Blake couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled in his chest. The mysterious girl, the alien who had appeared on board his ship, was gone once again, leaving nothing behind but more questions. But it wasn't just her disappearance that weighed heavily on him. It was the warning she had given him. They're coming. And when they do, you won't be ready. Ethan stood alone in the darkened maintenance deck, his breath coming in shallow bursts. He glanced at the empty hallway beyond, hoping that somehow she would reappear, that she would explain everything. But the silence that surrounded him was deafening. His comms device crackled to life, interrupting his thoughts. "Captain Blake," the voice of Security Officer Jennings came through. "We've done a full sweep of the ship, but there's no sign of the intruder. All systems are showing green." Blake clenched his fist. "You're sure? You haven't found anything out of the ordinary?" "Nothing. We've checked every inch of the ship. The fuel systems are secure, no breaches, and the crew reports no unusual activity. It's like she was never here." Ethan's mind raced. How could that be? He knew what he had seen. He knew the girl was real. But now, it was as though the ship itself was conspiring to erase any trace of her. He couldn't allow this to go unchallenged. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, and the answers were slipping further away with every passing minute. "Keep looking. If you find anything, I want to know immediately," Blake ordered, his voice more strained than he intended. "Acknowledged, Captain. We'll continue to monitor." The comms cut off. Blake stood still for a moment, processing everything. The girl, the fuel, her warning, none of it made sense. She had seemed so calm, so sure of herself, but the way she spoke of them, whatever or whoever they were coming, and Blake had no idea how to prepare. With a sigh, Blake turned and headed toward the ship's command deck. If he couldn't rely on security to find answers, he would have to dig deeper himself. The girl had given him a hint, a cryptic one, but a hint nonetheless. She'd mentioned danger, a threat he couldn't see yet. But who or what was this threat? As Blake entered the command deck, he found the crew hard at work, but there was an underlying tension in the air. They were all aware of the oddities that had occurred, but no one spoke of them directly. It was as if the strange events were too unreal to address, too impossible to comprehend. Blake could feel their unease, their eyes occasionally flicking toward him with a mix of concern and confusion. "Captain, you're back," Lieutenant Jameson said, rising from his chair. "Any luck?" Blake shook his head. "No sign of her. The whole ship's been cleared. But I don't buy it. She was here, and whatever she said, whatever she warned me about, It's real. We're in danger. Jameson raised an eyebrow. Kind of danger? Blake hesitated for a moment, then shared the girl's warning. The room went silent, the crew exchanging uncertain glances. Dangerous or not, Captain Jameson finally spoke up. We need to act. Whatever this is, it's bigger than a stowaway or a malfunction. If she's right, if something or someone is coming, then we need to prepare. Blake nodded, his eyes hardening with determination. You're right, we can't sit around and wait for something to happen. I'm going to initiate full defensive protocols. I want every sector to be double-checked, and I need an analysis of any potential threats we might have missed. The crew members nodded, springing into action. Blake stepped to the central console and began inputting commands to lock down critical areas of the ship, preparing for whatever might come. As he worked, his mind drifted back to the girl. What had she meant when she said, "You won't be ready"? Was it a warning about something that would attack the ship? Or was there something more to her words? The thought gnawed at him. What if the girl wasn't just an alien on the run? What if she had been sent here to help them? Or worse, to lure them into a trap? Before Blake could make sense of any of it, a warning light on the console flashed. Red, his stomach dropped. Captain, we've got something. It's multiple objects approaching on a direct course. They're faster than anything we've encountered. Ethan's pulse quickened. He turned to the screen, which now displayed the incoming objects. They were small, almost untraceable, but their speed was undeniable. They were coming, and they weren't going to stop. Battle stations, Blake shouted. All hands prepare for impact. Brace for whatever's out there. The crew scrambled into action, but Blake's eyes remained fixed on the screen. The shapes in space grew closer, their movements erratic and purposeful. They weren't just heading toward the ship. They were homing in on it. Blake gritted his teeth. The girl had been right. Whatever was coming was faster, stronger, and ready to strike. As the objects came into view, Blake felt his blood run cold. They weren't just ships or drones. They were something ... alive. And they were heading straight for them. The warning had come. Now it was time to face the truth. There was no turning back. The lights on the ship flickered as the crew scrambled to implement defensive measures. Captain Ethan Blake stood in the command center, his hands gripping the edge of the console as the alarm blared loudly in his ears. The sight on the screens before him was nothing short of terrifying. What appeared to be a swarm of dark, sleek shapes, nothing like anything Blake had ever encountered, had now locked in on their ship. Their movements were sharp, calculated, as if they were being controlled by some unseen force. What the hell are they? Lieutenant Jameson's voice cracked over the tension-filled comms, his tone laced with disbelief. Blake's eyes remained locked on the screen. I don't know, but they're here, and we need to be ready. His mind raced. As the distant shapes grew closer, their speed undeniable. They weren't just approaching, they were closing in with alarming precision. But something else, something deeper in Blake's gut, told him this wasn't just a standard attack, the warning the alien girl had given their coming. And when they do, you won't be ready. Rattled him more than he was willing to admit. His mind spun as he recalled the cryptic message. Who was she really? She hadn't been a mere stowaway or a saboteur. There was something about her presence, something about the way she warned him, that told him this wasn't just a random encounter. She had known. Captain, we've locked the outer doors, Jameson said, his voice strained. But they're still coming fast. Blake took a deep breath, his fingers dancing over the console as he tried to make sense of the situation. The usual military protocols were useless against an enemy they didn't understand. The shapes on the screen weren't just ships, they had no engines, no visible propulsion systems, no markings. Just dark, sleek, featureless forms like shadows in the blackness of space. Suddenly, the comms device crackled again, breaking the tense silence. This is Lieutenant Andreev came. The voice of the head engineer. We've detected an energy anomaly. Something's disrupting the energy core. Might lose power to certain sections if it's not dealt with. Damn it, Blake cursed under his breath. Everything was falling apart all at once. Enemy. The malfunction. And the strange girl's warning it was all starting to feel like some sort of cruel cosmic trap. Focus on getting the power back online. "Lieutenant, we need to hold this ship together," Blake ordered, though his voice wavered slightly. There was no time to waste. He couldn't afford to lose control now. As the crew worked to prepare the ship's defenses, Blake found himself alone for just a brief moment. He couldn't help but think about the girl again. She had spoken of something coming, of a force beyond the ship's control. But were they truly the threat, or was she just the first sign of something far darker on the horizon? Blake turned to the screen once more, watching as the approaching shapes filled up more of the screen. Now, just moments from making contact. The ship had only one chance to survive whatever was coming. And for the first time, Blake felt completely helpless. Suddenly, the console in front of him beeped with a new message of text from the ship's internal communication system. A line of text that appeared like an ominous warning. The others are not far behind. Prepare for the truth. Blake's heart sank. The girl's words echoed in his mind. What did this mean? What truth was she referring to? He could feel the walls of uncertainty closing in, the air thick with impending danger. They had to be ready for whatever was coming, but how? "Captain, we need your orders." Jameson's voice came through again, more urgent this time. They're just seconds away from impact. Blake's breath caught in his throat as he stared at the screen. He could see the outlines of the dark shapes now, almost close enough to touch. And in that instant, everything fell into place. Those were not just ships. They were beings, entities, something with intelligence behind them. They had come. Blake swallowed hard, steadying himself. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. All crew to battle stations. Just as Blake finished issuing the orders, the first of the entities collided with the ship's outer hull. The entire ship shook violently, the lights flickering once again. A series of loud, grinding noises echoed through the walls, as though something was tearing into the ship. Blake gritted his teeth, steadying himself as the ship rocked again. This wasn't just an attack, it was an invasion. Evasive maneuvers activated, Jameson confirmed, his voice strained. "What? We're trying to break free, Captain, but something's holding us in place. We can't shake them." Blake's mind raced. They were trapped. These entities, these unknown beings, had somehow taken control of the ship's momentum. Every escape maneuver they attempted seemed to fail, as if an unseen force was preventing them from moving. "We're not dealing with just physical force here," Blake muttered, his mind working furiously. "There's something more at play." The ship groaned as the hull was struck again, the lights now dimming to almost nothing. Ethan's pulse pounded in his ears. He had no answers, no clear strategy. Just the knowledge that they were facing something far greater than any enemy he had ever encountered. Whatever the girl had warned him about it was all true. They were in the heart of something far more terrifying than space itself, and they were not alone. The ship groaned under the relentless pressure as Blake fought to maintain his composure. Every second felt like an eternity as the mysterious entities, those dark, intelligent forces, continued their assault, clinging to the ship like an unseen plague. The lights flickered again, casting eerie shadows over the control room. The hum of the engines sputtered, the power systems on the brink of total failure. "Captain, we're losing power to the auxiliary systems." Lieutenant Andreev's voice crackled through the comms. "We've got minimal shields left. If they strike again, we'll have nothing to defend ourselves with." Blake's fists clenched. "On as long as you can, Lieutenant. Do not let that power go." The tension in the command room was palpable. Every member of the crew was on edge, but none more so than Blake. He couldn't escape the growing feeling that they were running out of time and out of options. His thoughts kept returning to the alien girl. The warning she had given him echoed. In his mind, "You won't be ready." At the time, he had dismissed it as some cryptic rambling. Now it felt like a prophecy, a warning about something bigger than the ship, bigger than even the entities attacking them. Blake's gaze shifted back to the view screen, where the dark shapes surrounding the ship continued to pulse with energy, like an ominous storm cloud in deep space. The shapes were now shifting and moving in ways that didn't make sense. They weren't attacking directly, they were waiting, like predators circling their prey. But why? What did they want? The fear that had been growing in Blake's chest finally began to take shape. These weren't just random attackers. They had a purpose, had a plan. The words of the alien girl came to him again, this time clearer than ever. You're in danger. But it wasn't just the ship that was in danger. It was everything. Blake could feel it now. The creeping realization that the girl's warning wasn't just about the ship being attacked. It was about something much darker. These entities weren't just after them. They were after everything. They were part of a much larger scheme. He turned to Jameson, who was monitoring the external data. Anything new? Jameson's eyes were wide, a look of disbelief spreading across his face as he glanced back at Blake. Captain, there's something you need to see. He flicked a few switches, bringing up a new series of data on the screen. Blake approached. Quickly, the data was unclear at first, filled with strange symbols and energy readings. But as Blake stared harder, the patterns began to form a picture. It was a map of the galaxy, with blinking points scattered across it, points that seemed to be converging on their position. This map, it shows coordinates. They're all marked as potential targets. Blake said, trying to make sense of it. Jameson nodded grimly. It's not just us. It's these things. Whatever they are, they've been hunting us for a while. This map shows a pattern. These entities have been systematically targeting certain locations. And we're next. Blake's heart sank. So it's not random. They're after something specific. It looks like it, Jameson replied. But there's more. According to the data, the areas they've been targeting have all been ruins. Ancient ruins scattered across different systems. Something about these sites is attracting them. Blake rubbed his temples, trying to process the information. So they've been targeting ancient sites. But why? What's there? And how does it tie into the warning we received? Jameson's voice lowered. I think we're dealing with something far older than we realize. Something that's been hidden. And I don't think we're the first to encounter it. Blake's gaze darkened. The truth. The alien girl's words returned, sharper now. She had said, prepare for the truth. This wasn't just an attack. It was a discovery, a revelation. It had stumbled upon something ancient, something buried. In the depths of space, hidden away for reasons no one on board understood. The girl, Blake said suddenly. She knew. She's connected to this somehow. Jameson nodded, his expression grim. She's not just a random stowaway, Captain. She's a part of this. She was sent to warn us, to make us aware of what's coming. We need to find her. Thoughts raced. The girl hadn't just been a passenger. She had been a messenger. She had come to them, not by accident, but because they had stumbled upon something they weren't supposed to. The entities, these predators, weren't after them because they were a threat. They were after something much more important. Something hidden beneath the surface of this ship, or perhaps something inside of them. Blake's eyes narrowed. Find her, Jameson. I don't care where she is. We need her alive. She's the key. Before Jameson could respond, the warning alarms blared once again. The external monitors flashed red as the enemy ships drew closer. Their movements synchronized in a way that sent a wave of cold dread through Blake. They've adapted, Jameson said in a strained voice. They're not just attacking. They're learning. They're evolving. Blake gritted his teeth. There was no time left for questions. There was no time for answers. All he had now was the truth buried. Deep within this galactic web of ruins and ancient secrets, and the certainty that they were all part of something far bigger than they could have ever imagined. And whatever it was coming for them. The ship trembled again as another strike from the mysterious entities shook the hull. The walls of the command center creaked and groaned, as if protesting the violence of the invisible assault. Blake clenched his fists, staring out the view. Screen at the black void where the enemy ships soar, whatever they were, now surrounded them like predators closing in on prey. The tension in the air was suffocating. They'd come so close to understanding the enemy. But now it felt like everything was slipping through his fingers, Captain. We've isolated the main energy core. Lieutenant Andrews' voice came through, snapping Blake from his thoughts. But, strange, the systems are responding differently. It's almost as if something else is controlling it. Blake's eyes widened. What do you mean, something else? Andreev hesitated for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was laced with confusion. I don't know how to explain it, Captain. There's a presence in the core. It's not just malfunctioning. It's as if someone or something is inside. The ship's systems, it sits communicating through the energy. Blake's mind reeled. The idea of a presence in the ship was unsettling. Was this the work of the entities? Were they so advanced that they could manipulate the ship's very systems? Or was there something else at play here? It's the alien girl. Her warnings. You won't be ready. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft buzzing sound like a low coming from the comms panel. He turned to face it, expecting another urgent update from the crew, but instead a familiar voice filled the room. Ethan, I told you to be careful. The voice was unmistakable. It was the alien girl. Blake's heart skipped a beat. Where are you? What's happening? What do you mean careful? The voice echoed through the room, softer now, as if it were coming from everywhere at once. This ship. It's not just a ship. It's a doorway, Ethan. A gateway to something far greater than you can imagine. Blake's mind whirled, a storm of confusion and disbelief. A doorway. The girl continued, her words more urgent now, almost desperate. You have to listen to me. The entities that are surrounding you, they're not from here. They've come for the gateway, and once they control it, they'll have access to everything. You can't let them in. Blake stood still, the weight of her words sinking in. What do you mean access to everything? The voice faltered for a brief moment, then spoke again, her tone heavy with something Blake couldn't place fear. Regret? I don't have much time. The ship? It's alive. It's been waiting for them. The technology you're using, it's not just technology. It's a vessel for something older, something that was never meant to be found. You're not just dealing with an enemy anymore. You're dealing with them. Blake's eyes darted. To the control panels? Alive? The ship? He shook his head, trying to make sense of the impossible message. But before he could ask another question, the voice cut off, replaced by a distorted hum, as though the connection had been severed. Captain, Jameson's voice pulled him back to reality. What was that? Who was on the comms? At the Nausilent comms panel, unsure whether what he had just heard was a warning or a ghost in the machine. It was her, he murmured. The alien girl, as Jameson started, but Blake didn't need to hear the rest. He was already on his feet, moving toward the power systems. Something was happening to the ship, something far beyond their control. Blake pulled up the schematics for the ship's energy core. The readings were fluctuating wildly, but there was one area that stood out to him. The core was pulsing. It was almost as if it were breathing. Blake's pulse quickened. Lieutenant Andreev.
Blake barked. Can you isolate the power surge coming from the core?
It's like something is interfering with the system. I've already tried, Captain, Andreev's voice crackled back, but the core is resisting our attempts to stabilize it. It's like it doesn't want to be fixed. Blake's thoughts raced. The girl's words were making more sense now. This ship isn't just a ship. It's a gateway. But to what? And how did the girl know all of this? Was she part of it? She come here to stop them from unlocking whatever was hidden inside? The more Blake thought about it, the more the realization hit him. The ship wasn't just under attack from outside forces. It was changing. Whatever had been dormant within it was awakening. And the alien girl had been the key to unlocking the truth. Blake knew he had to act quickly. Before the ship completely succumbed to whatever force had taken hold of it, he looked at the view screen again. The enemy ships were closer now, their presence more oppressive than ever. They were waiting, and Blake couldn't shake the feeling that they were more connected to this ship than he had realized. We need to find her, Blake said, his voice firm. Whatever this ship is, whoever she is, she's the key to stopping this. If she's the one who warned us, she's the only one who knows how to stop it. The crew looked at him with uncertainty, but Blake's resolve was unshaken. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. This was a race against time to stop a force far older and more dangerous than anything they had ever encountered. As the ship hummed with unnatural energy, Blake knew one thing for certain. The real battle wasn't just against the enemies outside. The ship, It was against the truth that was buried deep within the ship itself. And only the girl knew how to stop it from consuming them all. The ship shuddered again, this time with an intensity that sent every crew member scrambling for support. Captain Ethan Blake's knuckles turned white as he gripped the armrest of his chair, staring at the screens, which flickered with static. The pulse from the ship's energy core was growing stronger, sending waves of disorienting vibrations through the entire vessel. He glanced over to Lieutenant Jameson, who was frantically typing commands into his console. "Jameson, what's happening? The readings are off the scale. Is the core about to go critical?" Jameson's eyes flickered nervously between the screen and Blake. "It's not just the core, Captain. The ship's entire system is waking up. I think whatever energy the girl mentioned, whatever's buried here, is starting to activate. The ship's not just responding to the enemy, it's reacting to something inside itself." Greeks. Heart skipped a beat. "Are you telling me the ship's alive?" "I don't know what else to call it." Jameson's voice was shaky. "The core. It's more than a power source. There's something ancient, something sentient, hidden deep within the ship's systems." Blake's mind flashed back to the girl's warnings.
Ow.
"This ship is a doorway, Ethan. A gateway to something far greater than you can imagine." It was all coming together now. This wasn't just an alien invasion. It wasn't even just an ancient force trying to control the ship. The ship itself, its technology, its core was alive. It was connected to the ancient forces outside. Entities attacking them weren't just after the ship. They were after whatever was hidden within it. Whatever the ship had been designed. "To protect, we need to find the girl," Blake said firmly, his voice low but urgent. "She's the only one who knows how to stop this." But just as the words left his mouth, the ship gave one final, violent shake. The lights above flickered, then went completely dark, plunging the entire command center into an eerie, suffocating blackness. The emergency lights kicked on, casting long shadows across the walls. The low hum of the ship's systems was replaced by a chilling silence that seemed to press against Blake's chest, and then, he heard it. A soft, almost melodic whisper, like a distant hum, rising from the core itself. "You are too late, Captain." Blake's breath caught in his throat. The voice wasn't from the alien girl. This voice was different, darker. The tone was layered, as though it was coming from something deep within the ship, or perhaps from the ship itself. "What? What was that?" Jameson asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know," Blake answered, his gaze fixed on the darkened screen in front of him. "But it sounds like we're running out of time." Suddenly, the comms panel blinked to life. The image of the alien girl appeared on the screen, her face pale and solemn. "You've opened the gateway," she said, her voice cold and distant. "It's too late to stop what's coming. You're not just fighting them anymore. You're fighting everything." Blake's heart pounded in his chest.
Do you mean what's happening?
Her eyes locked onto his, and for the first time, Blake saw something that made his blood run cold. It wasn't fear in her eyes, it was sorrow. This ship is not just a vessel, it is a prison, and once the core activates, the power of the gateway is unlocked, there's no turning back. "Who's imprisoned here?" Blake asked, struggling to keep his voice steady. The girl looked away as if struggling with the truth. "You've heard the stories of the ancient races, the ones that vanished, the ones that disappeared. They didn't leave, Captain. We're locked away, trapped in the depths of this ship. And now, the time has come for them to be freed." Blake's mind spun. The entities outside, the voices in the ship, they were all part of something ancient. But the girl's words didn't make sense. Locked away? Trapped in the ship? Could have been trapped here, and why? The girl's image flickered, and for a moment Blake thought she might disappear. But her eyes remained fixed on him. "If you don't stop it now, Captain, you will all be consumed. You've opened the gateway, and the core is responding. There's no way to close it now. You must face what's inside before it faces you." Before Blake could respond, the image of the girl disappeared, leaving only static behind. His mind raced. This was more than just an alien threat, was an awakening of something that had been lying dormant for millennia. Blake's gaze shifted to the view screen. Enemy ships were still there, now mere shadows in the blackness. But now he understood. They weren't here to invade. They were here to witness the awakening. They were here because they knew what would happen once the gateway was opened. It's not the ship they want, Blake whispered to himself. It's the power inside it. Suddenly, the ship groaned. A loud, deep rumble that shook the entire structure. A strange, sickening glow began to emanate from the core, casting a pale light that filled the room. Blake's heart sank as he watched the glow intensify. Something was emerging, something that had been locked away for eons. And now, it was finally free. "We need to get to the core," Blake ordered, his voice urgent. "Now, before it's too late." The crew rushed to the control room, but Blake stayed behind for a moment, staring at the glowing core. My mind was overwhelmed but one thought rang clear through the chaos. The truth was no longer hidden. What came next was far beyond anything they could have imagined.